Now, let's move on to our next section in the PMBOK guide. 2.4 is called Organizational Systems. The whole topic of organizational systems hinges on systems theories. Now, systems theory exists in a much wider domain outside of project management. But just to get you started on organizational systems, you need to know a little bit about systems theory. What do we mean by a system? A system consists of a series of functions or activities. You could think about these as sub-processes. So within a system, you have functions and you also have activities. Think about a system, for example, as being an electrical or mechanical system. The different components in that system work together. They work together for the aim of the system. Now, if you think about an organization, if you liken that to an organization, you can say that the components in an organization work together for the benefit, for the aim of that organization. Now, we can have different components in an organization. We can have these sub-processes, if you will. They are necessary for the system to exist the way it does, but they are not sufficient to accomplish the aim of the system. That is the whole idea about organizational systems. An organization is a system, and the degree of interdependence in the system depends on what system it is. It varies. Let me give you an example. For example, a bowling team is a system. The degree of interaction between the components, the players, the members, is low, right? Because in a bowling team, no one's passing the ball to someone else. Someone's just rolling the ball, and it's pretty much up to them. Now, you can get inspiration and so on from your team members, but that's not like being in an orchestra. Think about an orchestra. The level of interdependence is higher. One bad note played could make everything else go downhill. And you think about it in economies of scale on a continuum. Think about businesses. The interdependence in a firm is much higher than that in an orchestra. And that in an orchestra is much higher than that in a bowling team. So these are just some of the ideas that organizational systems rest on. Management of a system requires knowledge of the interrelationships between all the sub-processes. So when we talk about management in a firm, those people, management need to know what's going on. They need to be aware of the components. They need to be aware of the sub-processes within the system. They need to be aware of everyone who works within it. They need to be aware of the competition. And that takes us into a topic of optimization. How do you optimize the firm? Well, it's management's job to optimize the system. It's management's job to improve the system. Now, you could improve one tiny little aspect of the system, but that's not enough. We call that sub-optimization, where you optimize just a tiny little piece of the system. But that could be dangerous, and it could cause the wider system to act in a very unpredictable way. It could actually result in loss. So when we talk about optimization of a system, we want to be thinking about optimizing the whole, not just optimizing some, but really optimizing the whole system. Okay, and we call that system optimization. So one more time, I want you, before we move further, to really think about the organization you're in. It's a system, just like a clock, just like a house. A house is a system. It's got people in it. It's got washing that needs to be done. What happens if you leave the system? You don't do the washing of the dishes or the plates, and people don't maintain law and order. The system goes downhill. So systems contain those components that need to be maintained and optimized and serviced. That's the whole idea about the systems theory and how it relates to you studying for the exam. Your project exists in an organizational system. It doesn't exist in just the department. The department doesn't exist on its own. It's in the firm. The firm does not exist on its own. It interacts with its environment and so on. Okay, so before we go any further, I'll just show you an image here really quickly. You've got your project, and your project is impacted by organizational constraints. Think about that. It's affected by the constraints in the